Howdy everybody, and welcome back to our Chip and Dale tutorial. Today will be the penultimate episode before we finish up our init object. So as you can see, we have three more objects left: transitions, stats, and the music manager. Our object transitions and our object stats are going to be very quick. Object transitions hasn't really changed since our last tutorial, and object stats is just a bunch of variables that I hold as a stat. So that just leaves our object music manager over there as well, and there has been significant changes in how the music manager works, so I'll be going over that more in depth in the next episode. But for today, we're going to go with the transitions and stats. So let's get cracking. Get started here. We'll pop out our object stats real quick. And these are going to be the stats that our characters are going to use for so that they can, just the stats they use. And that way, if you don't, so like stuff like how many flowers pickups you have and how many lives you have, these are all important information that are referenced by other objects maybe, and you don't want them stuck in your player object, because when your player object dies, you might destroy your player object, and if you do that, then, well, nothing will be able to reference it anymore, and you'll end up with null errors. So we don't want that to happen, so we just create it over here. Let me zoom in. Oh, nope, I was already zoomed in. That makes it easier. All right, so we have our player 1. We have P1 underscore flowers, 0, P1 stars, 0, P1 lives, 2, P1 health, 3. And the same thing for player 2. And it continues, 3. And we have this last little bit here, the last room and last zone, which will be used for determining where to start when you die and where to start when you continue. Okay, and last but not least, just create a other room start, and here we just update our last room variable whenever the room starts. That way we can always keep up our what room we're going to go to when we die. So that was quick and painless, right? So we'll get rid of that. Don't need it anymore. Actually, we'll just go to Windows, close all. So the next one, object transitions, and like I said, there hasn't really been many changes made, so let's just create a new object here. We're going to need this object transitions before we leave our start event here. So let's do a create and throw in the same code that we used in our Legacy of the Wizard tutorial. Our transition modes: off, next, go to, restart, room reset, intro, and quit. And our transition type: none, slide, or fade. And we're going to populate a couple of variables here, such as our display underscore get underscore GUI width, display underscore get underscore GUI height, because we need our GUI width and height for setting up how large our draw objects need to be to cover the screen when we do a transition. Then the width half and height half, and what mode and type, and our starting percentage. So this I should probably just rename this as like something else, because starting percent doesn't really make much sense with 1.2 percent would be equal to starting percent. I'll have to figure out what to call that eventually. The main problem with the transition object is having none, so an instant transition or a fade transition covers like 90% of all transitions in NES games. And then we have the slide transition from another thing. I don't remember if we made it specifically for Legacy of the Wizard or if I had it for something else. Anyways, if we come back here real quick, let me zoom you out. Back over to our scripts, we have the transition and the fade transition script. as you may remember. Should be in your project file. This is simply starts up the fade transition when you call it and moves you to the target room. And fade transition mode. Oh yeah, mode would be if we're going to go to the next, go to any specific room, restart the room, or room reset. Oh, restart the game or restart the room, or and the intro would be used for just a fade out and fade in. Okay, so yeah. Anyways, we have that script there, and next up we need to throw in our step event. This one is going to be a lot more difficult to explain here, but to start off, if mode underscore is equal to transmode.off, so when we're in our default state, which is the off, we aren't doing anything, then exit. So don't execute any of the code because we don't need to do anything right now. And you can actually, well, there's other things you can do with that, like for pauses and stuff, but we're not going to be doing any of that. So if introing, go from black to visible, else the other direction. So if we're in transmode.intro, then my percent will be the maximum of either 0 or percent minus, and a little bit of math here, but it comes out basically saying 1.2 here. So the 1 would be 100%. So I have it currently like 120%. That gives you a little lead-in time for the transition, and that's what I found worked well with these transitions here. So we would go the 1.2 minus the max of 1.2 times 0.1, so that would be 0.12 or 0.05. So percent minus, in this case, 0.12. So it'd go from 1.2 to 1.08. And then you have the max of 0, so if you get to the point where you would be going under 0, then it would just be 0. So we're going from 100% black or to 0% black. So that'd be coming into a new room. And then over here we have the opposite. So we're going from 0 to or whatever our starting percent is. Let's see. Yeah, we're going to our from 0 to our, because this should be at 0 at that point. So 0 plus the max of the starting percent minus percent times 0.1 and 0.005 or 0.005 again, and preventing ourselves from going over our starting percent, which is 1.2. And then when we've reached max black or full visibility, check what I should do next. So if percent is greater than or equal to starting percent, or percent is less than or equal to 0, then we switch our mode. So if our mode, which we set back over in our transition type, so if we use go to, because I want to go from the init room to the title room, then it would say, okay, mode, go to, and it would swap itself into the intro mode, and it would set my target to here. And then we would start changing our percent again. So we would go from 0 to, or so since we're now in the intro mode, we go from 1.2 to 0. So we'd fade in our screen because we've just moved over to our new room. And it's kind of the same thing for a lot of these. So mode intro and mode would be off if we were in the intro mode. So if we have initiated a intro into a room, then we go to intro mode and it says, oh, we're done. So we go to off. And I also put in this line here, which returns our input state back to the normal input state after we enter a room. That way the player can't move around until their transition is finished. And should actually have this line. Should probably also be in here, except put it to none here. That way when we initiate a transition, the player loses the ability to control. That way they can't jump around the screen while the fade out is happening. Though I probably do this before initiating the transition normally. Yeah. So anyways, that's what we got going here. And like we have trans mode quit, that would be game in, trans mode room reset, room restart, and trans mode restart, game restart, etc. Last but not least, we're going to need a draw event, draw GUI end, specifically end because we want our transition to cover up all of our GUI elements. So we don't want our hearts, our HP, to be visible during the transition. Though, I mean, that you might want them to actually be visible during the transition, in which case, instead of draw GUI end, you would put draw GUI start. And stuff like that, depending on how you want to handle it. Again, if the trans mode is off, then don't draw anything, so we don't need to draw anything. Now, remember back with our display manager, I didn't really show you the stuff for setting up a letterbox mode here, but if you were going to be setting up the letterbox mode, you would do two types of things here. You would have to the main thing would be you'd have to draw to a separate GUI. So let's just ignore this for the time being because we don't want to be worrying about that. There we go. So if type of transition is equal to slide transition, then draw set color C_black, draw two rectangles and position them at the top and the bottom of the screen. And as our percent changes, change where they are on the screen. So it would draw them at like 120% of the height of the screen. So if this bottom down here where you can see me waving is the bottom of the screen, they would actually be drawing down here and then move up from there to towards the center of the screen, I believe, or the other way around, depending on which way you're going. And then set our draw color back to white. And if our type is equal to fade, then we just draw with our percent again. So if it's 1.2, then it would give us 120%. And C_black, draw a big rectangle across the entire screen. And then reset our draw color back to white and our alpha back to 1. That way everything draws normally afterwards. And that's it. Fairly simple. At least I hope it's simple. So I hope everybody understands what happened. And if you have any questions, feel free to add a comment and ask, because, well, that's why the comments exist. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching, and good luck with your programming.